Voices from the Mausoleum is brought to you by the You Run Podcast Network and yourunpodcast.com.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Voices from the Mausoleum, and welcome to another indie horror filmmaker interview. Today, I am joined by, finally, much-awaited conversation with Brandon Perras-Sanchez. Thank you so much for being here. I'm excited to chat with you.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course. We have a mutual through Joshua Pangborn, and then I have been following you and other members of people that you work with. I've been trying to keep up with everybody, and I was like, and actually Joshua told me probably months ago now, he's like, you got to talk to Brandon, like you should have him come on, and so we were finally able to make it happen.
Yeah, no, Josh is great.
Yeah, he is. I love working with Josh. So we're going to I want to give you an opportunity to talk about, because you do a lot of things. You're not just a filmmaker. It's you wear a lot of hats. So I do want to give viewers an opportunity to get to know you and some of the other stuff you do before we dive into the main focus, which is the really cool graphic behind us, Queen of Rats. But first, I'll just do like a short introduction kind of, and then we'll let you talk about all your babies, your little passion projects that you have. So you're the co-creator, and I believe you act in both of these. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Death Drop Gorgeous, and then Saint Drogo as well.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so the newest one that's upcoming that is not released yet is Queen of Rats. You're also a member of Monster Makeup, and you're a horror author as well. You write as well, which that's probably where I started at. I think with knowing who you were was the writing side of things. You have The White Bishop, which is based on a screenplay. We'll talk about that again in a little bit more, but you also just had a new release, Recessive Nature, as well. So you definitely do a lot of really cool stuff. And it's always fun because I don't think anybody in our community like ever does just one thing. Everybody does a lot of stuff. But yeah, I guess I kind of wanted to start with kind of talking a little bit about Monster Makeup and like what that is and what you do with them.
Sure. So Monster Makeup is the crew of people that we make the movies, we write the movies, we act in them. We had to come up with a production company because a lot of our money comes from crowdsourcing and from fundraising events too. So we had to have a legal place for it to go. So you kind of have to do like an LLC and all that stuff.
Makes sense.
So Monster Makeup is kind of like our legal our legal.
I gotcha. Yeah.
We didn't have to do it, we wouldn't, but you just kind of have to. We want to be as legit as possible, but also like not have to spend a ton of money being legit.
Yeah. No, I get it, because that part of it can be very expensive, especially because you're on this Queen of Rats is going to be the third feature-length film through Monster Makeup. And you guys, you met your goal for your is it Indiegogo that you used? Yeah. Not that long ago. I know we're past it a little bit now, but I remember seeing the announcement that you guys had met it, which is super exciting. And what crowdfunding to me is like such a scary concept. Like, I don't know. Has it been that way for all three films?
Yeah.
It's
my least favorite part.
Yeah, it can be, I think, a lot for anybody that has to do it. But it's good that people, believe in the projects enough to support them. That's always awesome.
Yeah, and like with our breakdown of money too. I mean, like I'd say like 80% of it goes to our special effects. So like that's one thing like Monster Makeup will always promise, just having like non-CGI, maybe an occasional composite, but all just practical effects and crazy gore and mayhem. So
yeah, that's what we love in the horror genre, though. I mean, that stuff's always better than the over-edited stuff anyway.
Yeah.
Well, cool. And then one of the other things I, of course, wanted to talk about, because I don't think I've met anybody that had a novelization done. I don't think so. So you have a screenplay called The White Bishop, which was novelized by Aaron Beauregard.
Yep.
And I guess I just kind of wanted to know how that went. Like, where did that come about? And because The White Bishop doesn't exist in film or short or anything.
I wish. Yeah. So just I started off like just writing short stories and stuff, nothing like crazy, just kind of just ideas, nothing like in an actual novella format. And I
Yeah.
was chatting with Aaron one night, and I was just talking about how difficult it is to sell a screenplay. Like the actual process is just so tedious and insane. And I just kind of like, after reading a lot about it, I'm like, this is impossible. It's kind of like who you know to get your stuff anywhere. Especially in the indie circuit, like not a lot of people are buying screenplays. That's more like steps above that. So Aaron was like, why don't you just novelize your screenplays instead of having them just sit in limbo on your computer? So I brought Dwight Bishop to him, and we kind of just multiple times in a few months just sat down together, and he would like type up some stuff, and I sit there next to him and read it, and then just kind of went from there. And he taught me how to do all the self-publishing and how to like put a screenplay into a novel format.
Right.
Which was awesome. And with Recessive Nature was actually also a screenplay too, and I did that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Ah.
yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, I have a friend in the indie community that has novelized a couple of like movies, two shark silly movies primarily, and I know like I remember some of her steps of like going through the process as the writer. So I was very interested to hear about the other side of it, just because. But that's cool. I didn't know Recessive Nature was a screenplay too. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've as usual, I'm gonna put all the links and everything where you can find Brandon, Monster Makeup, as well as the links to Recessive Nature in the link for the episode, so people can find it in the description. And then before we kind of dive more into like the filmmaking side of things, I did kind of want to talk a little bit about Recessive Nature. That's obviously out, kind of what it's about, and kind of just went into getting that out into the world.
Yeah, so it's when I was a kid, like some of my escapism was reading about cryptozoology and supernatural, all those kind of books too. So I just kind of like a huge fan of all that stuff. And I wanted to make a movie out of, involving some of these creatures and some of their lore. So the movie takes place in the 80s, and it's about two cousins that come from a lineage of cryptid trophy hunters. And they accidentally stumble upon one of their dad's journals. It gives them a clue as to where they went, because they both lost both their fathers. They don't know how or where or why. Found a clue. Then they go after the I don't want to give anything away, but they find that the entry tells them where to go in the diary, and they kind of go after it. There's like a kind of a fun little plot twist element in there too. There's lots of little fun creatures. A lot of the stuff that's in there is based on actual folklore and actual some of the supernatural stuff too. So it's fun.
No, that's super cool. I'm a big fan of cryptids as well. I think most of my creature feature love comes from all of the stuff I used to follow and watch growing up about different types of cryptids and their lore. And like been to Mothman Festival. I've traveled to a Bigfoot museum and like those types of cryptids, and then leaning more into like other types of lore from other countries and that kind of stuff. That's super cool. I love that. That's awesome.
I love all that stuff too. It's so fun.
It is. Yeah. And there's, especially when you branch out of just like the main cryptids that everybody knows and you start learning about other things, you can find some really, really cool stuff, some really neat theories and stuff like that. It's a big, or very deep rabbit hole, if you will. Very deep.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, cool. So I kind of want to talk about the filmmaking stuff, obviously. And I think probably the most logical place to start is kind of where you got your start in filmmaking. Were you a writer first? Is that kind of where it came from?
Yeah, so I was a writer first. I luckily just met up with the right crew of people that were equally crazy enough as I am to make Death Drop Gorgeous, which took forever. It was a labor of love, and it was just, I think we fell into the right group of people. We just wanted to make the horror that we weren't really seeing, especially like in the queer community too. I think a lot of the queer horror coming out was just kind of I don't want to use the word basic, but it just was kind of just redundant. I think it didn't go as far as it should. So we kind of want to like push those boundaries. So yeah, that's when kind of Monster Makeup came together. It was kind of just nights and weekends for a few years. Just started filming this movie, and now we have that. And then San Drogo, we just kind of same crew. We just sat down. Took about a year to write. We filmed it during COVID, and yeah. So that was fun too.
Yeah, cool. Do you find it easier to write or act?
It depends. Like it depends on the character, and I love writing. It comes super easy to me too. Like acting, it's tricky. Like in Saint Drogo, I kind of play myself in a weird way, and I thought that was way more difficult. Just be kind of like a even keeled, like normal dude. But like playing a cartoon character, like my character in Death Drop Gorgeous, was super easy and fun. This new movie too, it's kind of like a cartoon character.
Yeah.
But I've been in a couple other roles too, like in this movie coming out called Hollow Lake, where I kind of play like a normal dude, and I
Yeah.
find that's way trickier. It's like to kind of like an emotion. Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah. Weird to play normal. I can
Yeah.
see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know you have like the team that you work with for Monster Makeup, and it's the same group of people. Do you get to mess with some of the special effects too, or is there like somebody specific that does those things?
Oh yeah, so like with our caliber and like how much money we have with micro budget stuff, like we do have we'll pull in like big like people are really good at what they do, like Joe Castro and stuff and Scott Miller.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but sometimes like we don't have enough. Or either like if something goes wrong with the prop, or we have to go fix it later on, like we have to do some MacGyvering ourselves.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
with both movies, like we did some of the special effects ourselves in Death Drop. Not any like really big ones, and a little bit of the stuff in Saint Drogo too, just to save money.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a trick. It's a really fun world. I love the special effects worlds. Like I love seeing those people come together and make their magic happen. It's like it's really cool. But yeah, trying to do it ourselves just ain't the same.
Yeah, it's definitely an art form. I think there's I think it's probably easier to just dump blood everywhere than it is to do some of the other stuff when it comes to like, especially like body horror, which is one of the reasons that I think indie horror filmmakers are so cool is the stuff that you guys are able to accomplish with, whether you do it crowdfunding, it's coming out of your own bank accounts, whatever the case may be, the stuff that is able to be done in indie films on the gore side, especially because again, it is typically practical, is always insanely impressive. How real some of that stuff looks is crazy to me. So super.
Oh yeah. Even with Death Drop too, like some of the fun stuff we had was just like the glory hole scene everyone talks about. Like we filmed that separate when our special effects person was there too, and just we're putting like tofu hot dogs and fake blood in a meat grinder. It's like silly shit like that. Part where Chris gets the high heel in the eye, like we actually we created that prop and stuff. And it's just it's you gotta work within your means as an indie filmmaker. But with Drogo it's tricky too, because like the ending kind of hinges on like really big special effects scene, and it's outdoors and during the day. So we had to call in some big guns for that one too, and that's when Joe Castro did his magic, and that's pretty nasty. So
yeah. Some of the stuff I've seen, like when I've watched like documentaries or behind the scenes on movies or whatever, the way they're able to accomplish things seems so simple, but not necessarily easy to replicate. So it's like, oh, duh, but like, it's not really a duh, because in the moment you're like, I have no idea how to make this look like how I want it to look. And then they come in and they just do these things and you're like, oh, of course, it's cool. Yeah. Magic, movie magic.
Love it.
I kind of want to talk about Queen of Rats, kind of, what it is, what is the movie about, how this idea and concept came to be.
So with our Twitter films, they're all kind of like love letters to Rhode Island and Rhode Island adjacent areas like Provincetown. And so we're back to doing another Providence film. So in reality, and in like the 90s and early thousands, we have this district called Olneyville that was where all the old industrial warehouses were. Like it used to be like a big like textile and costume jewelry town. And like when all that stuff kind of like went away in the 90s and thousands, a lot of artists and stuff moved into these buildings because it was super cheap and affordable to live. A lot of like the mafia and like some developing companies were laundering money through these buildings. So in a weird way, there was like a weird symbiosis between these people and the artists that lived there too. Like cops weren't really fucking with them, but they were just throwing really, really big shows and parties and art installations, all this really cool stuff all the time. And it kind of put Providence on the map in a way. It's like part of the reason why we moved here ourselves. And so this movie takes place in 2006, and the main character is a noise rock band that's trying to get a show at like a really prominent nationally renowned music venue that's in one of these warehouses, who's ran by this kind of like gatekeepy rich kid. And all the while, there's the mafia that has this weird little side plot going on, and a giant Lovecraftian creature that lives in the basement of this warehouse space. So it's gonna be wild, but it's like all kind of takes place within that world.
Yeah. That's crazy. That sounds really cool though. I love that there's like a history there too, because that's not something I would have just known. So that's super cool. And I know I've been seeing like I've seen photos I think being shared. I've watched clips. And I can't think of the other person's name that comes up on the Indiegogo video. It's like I cannot think of who that is.
Oh, is it a Nitty Nothing?
Maybe, yeah, I think so. But like I've been watching like stuff about it come up as it's coming up on my feed and being shared and stuff. And it's very funny to see like I feel like when they post pictures and stuff, it's very funny to me because it's so obvious that you all had a really great time doing this movie. Because like I don't think I've seen a single picture, regardless, where like everybody's not laughing or smiling or at least at the very least like very comfortable and involved. And I don't know, like it just looks, you can tell that it's like a tight knit group, and it looks like you guys had a lot of fun making it.
Oh yeah, this whole group involved in this one. It's pretty much most people from the same universe as the other two, but
Oh, yeah.
it's a really tight knit group of people, and it's been going really well. We haven't gotten to the big stuff yet, so we have like this woman named Katron. She works for Guar. She built us this gigantic monster, which we haven't gotten to that stuff yet too, because like one of the spaces that we were going to film in just got purchased by this awful developing company, so we kind of got booted out of that space.
Oh no.
Yeah. So we're currently looking for a new location, but we're going to make it no matter what. We have a couple locations in mind. Hopefully, people will still be smiling on set after we put them personal effects.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. And so Queen of Rats was your role involved or roles involved in this the same as some of the others? And kind of was it different working on this project than the other two films?
It was pretty much the same. So
Yeah.
I help with more of like, the creation and the formatting of the story and some of the character development.
Mhm.
Kind of like the rest of the crew. Mike does pretty much all of the dialogue. So all the dialogue is Mike. The rest of us just kind of do like part of the storytelling, part of the character development. And then I'll be acting in this one as well. So we kind of just do the same stuff. So we all wear a lot of hats. We're doing the lighting. We're doing the anything on set that needs to be done. Coordinating the shooting days and the actors. So yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. I think like it makes sense that everybody has to kind of pitch in. I think just kind of what we were talking about earlier, it's very typical of working, I think, on an indie project. You just have to kind of do what you have to do. I haven't worked on a film, maybe one day, but I haven't worked on a film, so I can only imagine. But that's just what I've heard from because I have a friend of mine that does like found footage movies, and then I know like I've met a lot, and it's always like, yeah, we have to do like 50 million things, and some like I know one filmmaker that hates acting, doesn't want to be in front of the camera ever, but there have just been times where someone wasn't able to follow through on a role or and they had to, and they hate it, but it's like I had to do it because this was the last thing we needed to get done and all these things. And so, yeah, I know I can only imagine how busy it is to have to do so many different things just because you want to obviously get the project done and put what you want into it. So that makes sense.
Well, that it's like no one does this full time, so it's everyone's donating their time. So it's a lot of like nights and weekends and stuff. But even with Drogo, like Mike and I play the two leads in that movie. But part of the reason why is like we filmed in Provincetown during COVID, and you couldn't have a group of people larger than six. So
yeah.
we had other actors read for those roles, but just for the sake of convenience and being able to do it, Mike and I just grabbed the roles and did it ourselves.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I bet trying to film during COVID wasn't super fun. It was. And I guess if you were filming in the middle of COVID, I guess that prolonged everything probably, right? Took longer. Yeah.
So we had a lot of scenes that involved like large groups of people, so we couldn't film those at all until like way later, into the 2 years we did it.
Yeah. I live in Georgia. Our governor, our limits were they didn't care. They weren't as invested in that kind of stuff. So once they lifted things, it pretty much never went back to being like they never did anything like that. I think the smallest biggest group was, I think they went down to like 20, but I don't think it was ever less than that. They were very just like, whatever happens. You'll figure it out.
A large group of people.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. Well, cool. So has filming wrapped on Queen of Rats, or you still have stuff you have to film? Because you just said you're still looking for locations, so it's not finished yet.
Well, we have a lot to do.
You have a lot to do. Okay.
Yeah. We try to get as many shooting days as possible. But like with this one, the main character is like a full band, so it's like we have four kind of main characters. Ninny's like essentially the lead. So kind of coordinating all them. Like our drummer in the movie is a drummer in real life, and he's on tour with his band a lot. So we have to kind of like catch him when he's around. So yeah, it's a lot of little moving parts, but yeah, it's coming along. The footage is looking good. Yeah, we just keep cramming it in and getting as much done as we can.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think what the other two did the festival circuit, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, and I guess will that be the intention when this is wrapped? You'll try to do festivals again, or
Maybe. So I mean, maybe like a handful. As of late, like we've kind of lost our appetite for festivals. I feel like a lot of them are just kind of money traps and they're expensive. I
yeah,
feel like a lot of them don't even really watch the movies, and I recommend to any indie filmmakers like really research a festival first before you send your stuff in there too.
great advice. Yeah,
We have a very short list of festivals we will send our stuff to, but like when like you first starting off, like you want the laurels and you just like you send out your movie to everything and everybody, and you think that's like what you're supposed to do. But
yeah.
then like when you start really like looking into it, like, oh yeah, that you don't actually have to do this. And a lot of times these festivals amount to nothing. You just wasted a ton of money for no reason.
Yeah, yeah, and to your point, there is a very tiny horror film festival in the city near where I live, and it's so small. They don't do like any advertising, but they make filmmakers pay for their movies to be played, and it's weird to me because I think like it's supposed to be sort of a balanced relationship. Like it's supposed to
Yeah.
not just be a take and no give. So and you go to this, I went to it expecting it to be this like, big deal. And there was like no vendors there. They had like no, like it was, we could sit wherever you wanted because there wasn't a lot of people. And meanwhile, to your point, filmmakers are paying to have their movies put in and it's crazy. Yeah, definitely. That's great advice. Definitely research the one you're going to.
What's funny because you just kind of view it as like a band performing or a drag queen performing, where it's like
Yeah.
you don't expect a band to pay to play somewhere or a drag queen to pay to perform somewhere. So it's funny that like when it comes down to film, that when these bigger companies and studios are coming through, like the theaters pay for those. So it's like, why do indie filmmakers and micro budget filmmakers often have to pay for the spaces? It's kind of shitty. I mean, that's what like
It
the
is.
ticket prices and the concessions are for, but
Yeah, no, you're right. It's almost like, especially for like the one in particular that I'm talking about, because it's so small. It's almost like the filmmakers are paying to run the whole thing because
yeah,
because that's where it comes from. Because if there's nothing else making it any money, where's it
yeah,
coming from, right? So it's kind of and they had a ton of stuff. A friend of mine had a short, which was actually what prompted me to even look into it because I didn't even know it was a
nice.
thing because they don't market, and so it's like it could be a really I think fruitful endeavor and it could be
Yeah.
beneficial to filmmakers instead of kind of being like a pocket suck where it's just like, it just takes. But yeah, to your point, I think that's great advice. Definitely look into what you're submitting your projects to for sure. Um yeah, so it sounds I know there's not the stories are not the same, but there is some similarities in some of the stuff that you guys are interested. So I kind of just want to talk about what you want to bring to the horror genre in your filmmaking.
Yeah, like with the filmmaking, we just kind of want to bring bring the joy of like micro budget filming to the light. I think like I watch a ton of micro budget films. They're so much fun. They're so good, and like I really want to get people to switch their opinion on these films. Like, yeah, there are a lot of really bad ones out there, but you can say that about like any big budget film too. There's a lot of
But
bad big budget films too.
yeah,
So I think like as a consumer, like voting with your money, like give some of these smaller films a chance. And when I say smaller films, like some of these films are big too. I mean, there's some really cool micro budget stuff out there. So just kind of like bring to the table like anyone can make a movie. Just get a good story. Just try to get some some good special effects in there. Don't be afraid to not make your art, make your film. But yeah, because, and also just it's just fun to get like the queer voices out there too. There's not a whole lot of queer horror right now. I mean, there's a good chunk of it, but like we just don't mind being unabashedly gay and causing a little bit of trouble and pushing some buttons and
love it. No,
love
I
that.
love it. Yeah,
Yeah.
Voices is a queer ran YouTube channel. My partner, my co-host and I both. And so when it's not, we are big supporters of indie horror in general, but we do tend to maybe prioritize trying to get queer creators, queer writers, queer even other content creators, and the like to come on and talk because we especially because so my co-host Steve and I are about the same age. I think I'm a little bit older than him, but we're about the same age. We didn't grow up with that, right? So as we're growing up, you just see these very hetero norm cis storylines, and it's very, and so it took at least me personally a lot longer in life to get to where I probably would have liked to have been earlier in life. And so
Yeah.
to have the representation in the genre specifically that we love and care so much about is deeply important to us. And it's something that we talk about all the time. We are constantly trying to promote queer horror creators from all walks. It doesn't even matter. Like, Joshua was on and we talked about Homophobia, his new book, and just the importance of having that voice there, because you're exactly right. And up until like super late into the game for horror, there really wasn't even a gay character from any variation that was even a positive outlook on the queer community. And it's just, they were always like, is it very stereotypical or very problematic, or it always had to do with being bullied, or it always had to do with coming out. And it's these very specific things that like nobody wanted to branch out and talk about the fact that like they also have healthy relationships and they also live their lives and have other things and have hobbies and personalities. And so it's always really meaningful to us in general as a channel when we get an opportunity to talk to queer content creators on any side of it, because it's something that we didn't get to have growing up. So it's nice to know that at least it's getting out there now.
We really appreciate that too. Like, we can't get ourselves out there without people like you guys. It's awesome. And I think for the horror world too, like I want people to know, like, it's not like the presence of minority horror and queer horror is taking away from your horror that exists. Exactly. It's just an extra seat at the table. It's not, the table's expanding. It's not a competition. I think this weird, like, egocentric take that most horror fans have about it's my story, my world. It's like, yeah, but the world is very, very diverse. There's a lot of different people out there and perspectives out there too. And just challenge yourself a little bit. It's fun to watch other perspectives.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think kind of piggybacking off what you were talking about that you guys do is another perk to indie horror filmmaking is you get more people of color, you get more queer stories, you get these much bigger everybody's life, right? And not just this very specific. It's so funny because my parents are not they're not gay friendly. So they, which is rough for them now, but like my dad, I remember specifically making this comment to me about how, it's like everything has to be gay and everything has to be this or that. And it's like, it's so weird to me, right? Though, because how do you think everybody felt when everybody looked and sounded like you? Like that's all TV and media has been for ever. Like, at some point, you like seeing you, guess what? So does everybody else. Like it goes both ways.
That's what like you people enjoy seeing themselves, like you said, and that's like that's universal, not universal appeal. That's like the appeal of like the trials and tribulations of these characters in these films. You want to see yourself in them, and I think just people need to challenge themselves to branch out, maybe see like other people and what they're going through too. I'm not like, what I mean? And not every movie is for you. Like I'll watch black horror, but a lot of that's not for me because I'm not black. So a lot of experiences I don't understand, but I'm willing to watch it. It's just interesting to see like other people's approaches. I love seeing as much diverse stuff out there as possible. And we need to, like you said, in the micro budget indie world, there's a lot of that because like we have to kind of fight a little extra harder to get our seat at the table.
Yeah, you do. And then you have like some specialized groups that try to prioritize those voices. But they're so small that, I mean, they can't help everybody. They can't get everybody, like I interviewed Marco from Horror in the High Desert 3. Well, he was technically in 2, but he's a character in 3. And we talked about that, because he is not a white guy, right? Like he's had obstacles that maybe other people who look differently wouldn't have. And we talked a lot about that and just how that indie community is just kind of a bigger, the doors, they're not just flying open for everybody because indie filmmaking is very difficult, but just the opportunities are more there, I think, than because I mean, I know it's a rabbit hole, and I always bring this up because it's this mainstream thing and I just have such an irritation with it, but it's kind of like what happened to the people who were cast in Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City. So so all the characters weren't white and Leon was not a white guy. And you could not pay me to believe that was not the issue for people, because I know that it was. And Jill Valentine wasn't white either. And that bothered people. And I'm like, they're literally fictional video game characters. Like, what are you mad about? So anyway, I won't go down that rabbit hole because I can probably bitch about that for hours, but that's such a big thing. And now they're not going to make what they were going to make from, they were going to do another movie after that. And but they're going to do something different. And I guarantee you it'll be whitewashed. Everybody will be like, because they're not like, I can't handle the backlash. Whereas in indie filmmaking, you're more willing to take those risks and take a stand for that sort of thing.
It's so pathetic that we're like this. It's so stupid. Like,
Jesus fucking. And what's crazy to me is, so I'm a massive Resident Evil fan. It was the first horror game I ever saw, ever played. It's
Yeah,
very meaningful to me as a horror fan. And I absolutely loved the casting for that movie. I loved seeing other types of
yeah,
people of color in those roles. Like,
yeah,
I mean, they didn't add any queer representation that I'm thinking off the top of my head, but it was still better than just the same stuff over and
yeah.
over and over again. And like we said, you just get more of it in the indie filmmaking. And I love that. It's great.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. One of the best parts about it.
Yeah.
So I think we've probably talked about these a little bit already, because we talked about like filming during COVID, and then you said you had to find a new location. But what do you find to be some of the other obstacles doing indie filmmaking?
Honestly, getting your stuff out there is the hardest part. I think a lot of these, like, not so much the big name studios, some of the other like below them studios, and
Yeah.
distributors have done a really good job of
Mhm.
blocking out anyone trying to self distribute or get their stuff out there. Like, you have to get an aggregator to get on a Tubi. It's like it's a pain in the ass to get your stuff on. So like iTunes, Amazon, and when you have a distributor, who I don't recommend distributors either, they just they do a lot of stuff for you, but then they keep all your money. So it's
Yeah.
just getting your stuff out there and seen is so hard at this level that we're at too. And we're in the same boat with a lot of people, and so it's just like trying to get creative, trying to think of networking with other filmmakers that are kind of like in your arena.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, the strength in numbers, honestly, like we're friends with such a huge network of indie filmmakers across the country, and which has been great. And we chat about this all the time too, like how can we all work together to get our stuff out there, because it's a huge challenge. And it's a pay to play format too. Like, if you want to get your stuff out there, you got to pay, and you don't have the money to do that. So what other avenues can you take? Like, Vimeo just increased their subscription for people putting their stuff on there. Like, it's up to like $300 a year or whatever the heck it is now, or a month. I can't remember.
Dang. I didn't know that Vimeo had I know I watch a lot of screeners from filmmakers on there, but I didn't even think about having to pay. That's insane. That's a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like that everywhere. Even like with Tubi, even though it's hard to get on there, they're now paying less per stream, and also, you get more commercials on there too. So it's kind of turning like a Spotify kind of thing going on. So like,
Yeah.
what are these workarounds like for people like us? Physical media is kind of like the one way to get around it. Like, at least you can make some okay money with doing that and getting some of your budget back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Streaming is just, I guess, more so streaming is the tricky part.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I know. I've heard that the streaming opportunities are, even if they are willing to take it, which they're not always, because they're
Yeah.
very picky about indie filmmaking stuff that they're willing to take. It's like you got to pay your firstborn child or your
Yeah.
soul, or it's a lot. Like a friend of mine that does that I was talking about earlier, that does found footage. He went through all of the avenues to try to get his movie picked up, and he said that he went through like specifically the Amazon ones, and he was like, you would not believe the stuff that they expect from you if you do. He ended up putting it free on YouTube, is what he ended up doing, because he just got to this place, and he's still, I think, trying to get it and doing things with it. But
Yeah.
like, they just take so much, and it's crazy to me, because it's not like they don't know that it's an indie project, right? Like,
Yeah.
obviously, because big production companies aren't like trying their hardest to get their one thing on Amazon. That's not happening.
Yeah.
So
No.
yeah. It sucks.
I'm thinking something's going to break at some point, because I think there's a huge market for this. I think if something like a Bandcamp format kind of thing for films, I think it'd do really well. I think some of these things they're making too much money, and this is always what happens. It's like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and once they get enough people to agree to do it or pay for it, then they think anybody will. And
Oh
so
yeah.
then it ends up being, or they're increasing it, because like people will just do it. And it's crazy. And that's not something that crowdfunding can help. That's not, that's not something that you have in your control. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah. I know like Shudder goes to festivals and picks up stuff sometimes. And then there's that new, and this is a very specific subgenre, but there's the new found footage streaming service Found,
Oh, cool.
that's taking stuff, and they're like brand new, like they launched like October
Oh.
1st. But it's specifically found footage. But so I'm hoping, and those creators are phenomenal. They really care about like the horror community. And so I have faith that they're doing the right things in that regard. But
I
to your
love that.
point, I think there is a really big market for offering services like that to indie filmmaking. So maybe we'll see more of it in the future.
Well, that'd be great.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so we'll get ready to wrap up. But I wanted to ask you, what you feel your most rewarding moment doing indie filmmaking?
I think just seeing the final product all put together is super rewarding. I think connecting with, I know it's a very pageant answer, like connecting with fans is super rewarding too.
Sure.
So I feel like our movies are such a niche market. Like I think some people just don't know what the fuck to do with them, which is fine. 'Cause movies are-
Yeah.
but when you get the people that like, oh, this really resonates with my life. Like I get what you guys are doing, and they verbalize, what they get about it, and that's always really exciting too. It's like, oh, we're getting our point across, and people are liking it. So that's always super nice too.
Yeah. No, I bet, especially if it's up because it's something that's meaningful to you. So to know that it could hit for somebody else, and there's been indie films that have like changed my life, like not, and that sounds cliche or over the top, but it's true. Like I've seen indie films that have completely taken something that I thought I understood about myself or about the world and completely flipped it around and made me realize that like I really don't know this thing, or I really didn't understand that about myself, but maybe now I do. And so that's got to be cool. I can only imagine. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Same here. Like I've seen so many indie films that changed my life too, and just changed my whole like view of the whole indie world, the micro budget world, and just having to get creative with a little bit of money, and just you have to start MacGyvering stuff together, going on Craigslist in the free section, just anything you can do to like get what you need. Like it's fun.
Yeah.
Changes
Yeah.
the appreciation for the micro budget stuff too. It's like these people are making magic with such small budgets.
It's impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it is. It's, you walk away, and I mean, there have been numerous years, especially in the last, like I would say like 5 years specifically, since I've started to find more indie stuff. I feel like when I do like my 2024 top 10 horror movies, like the big ones aren't touching those lists.
Mm-mm.
It's the indie films that are making those lists and making it hard to make those lists. Cause I'm like, there's so many good ones.
Yeah.
How do you decide? But yeah, that's where it's at for sure.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah. Well, so Queen of Rats is not done filming, so obviously that's still in the process. But do you have any other projects you want to talk about that you have coming down the pipeline?
Sure. So I'm going to be playing a role in Josh Pangborn's movie called The Contract.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So we'll be filming that in January.
Yep.
I'm playing a role in helping to film Brian Polwin's new one called Abysmal Purgatory, which speaking of like indie like magicians, like he is one of the kings.
Yeah.
Stuff is pretty gruesome, but it's fantastic. I just wrapped up draft 2 of book 3, which is not a screenplay, but that should be out. I'm hoping, I really want to get it out by like January if possible, but
Oh, wow. Okay.
I think that's jumping the gun. It's probably going to be more like February. And then the Saint Drogo, we're hoping to get onto Blu-ray by December, January, and hopefully get that streaming on something. I don't know what, but that's been
That'd be great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're busy.
Oh yeah, it doesn't end.
That's only like the next 3 months. And you just like 6 things.
I work like 3 jobs too, so it's just like it just doesn't.
Yeah, I remember you telling me your schedule was insane. Yeah. No, for sure. Well, and thank you again for making time. I know it's not easy to do that when you have so many things you're trying to orchestrate. So I do really appreciate it.
I love what you're doing, so I'm honored to be on here. This is great.
Yeah. We'll have to circle back at some point and do your influential horror. We'll get you to come back for that.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, for sure. Well, cool. Well, as I mentioned before, I will have all of Brandon's links where you can find all of his stuff, including his book, Recessive Nature. I'll have the link for that in the description as well. And I think that's going to wrap up this episode of Indie Horror Filmmaking. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Enjoy your weekend. We will see you in the next one.
Bye.